couple of days, we'll be in 2024. Good morning. Welcome to Business Morning. Let's make the most of this couple of days that is left in 2023. This is 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversations. Let's do business, beginning with oil prices. Prices steadied on Thursday after falling sharply in the previous session as concerns eased about shipping disruptions along the Red Sea route, even as tensions in the Middle East continued to rise. Brent crude futures inched up 10 cents, that's about 0.1%, to $79.75 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were trading 5 cents lower at $74.06. You see it going the opposite side, a rare one there. Prices dropped nearly 2% on Wednesday as major shipping firms began returning to the Red Sea. Danish shipping company Maersk said it has scheduled several dozen container vessels to travel via the Suez Canal and Red Sea in the coming weeks, after calling a temporary halt to its routes this month after attacks by Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi militia. But the prospect of a prolonged Israeli military campaign in Gaza and the spillover of the conflict of attacks on ships in the Red Sea remain major drivers of market sentiment. Israeli forces pummeled central Gaza by land, sea and air on Wednesday, a day after Israel's chief of staff, Herzi Halevi, told reporters that the war would go on for many months. U.S. government data on fuel stockpiles is expected later on today, delayed by a day due to Christmas holiday on Monday. Still in the global space now, Chicago wheat futures edged higher on Thursday, recouping some of the previous session's losses, although gains were limited by a lack of demand in international markets by the year's end. Corn and soybeans lost ground with improved weather in Brazil weighing on prices. The most active wheat contracts on the Chicago Board of Trade added 0.6% to $6.26 for half a bushel, while corn fell 0.2% to $4.75 for three-quarters of a bushel. Soybeans lost 0.1% to $13.19 a while wheat prices fell more than 2% on Wednesday amid weak demand in the physical market. For soybeans and corn, weather charts showed uneven showers in the week ahead in dry parts of central and northern Brazil before widespread heavy rain expected in early January. Precipitation in the coming weeks will also influence corn crop yields in the upcoming first crop harvest and impact planting prospects for the larger second crop in Brazil. Commodity funds were net sellers of CBOT corn, wheat and soy meal futures on Wednesday and net buyers of soybeans and soy oil futures contracts. It might be a working day, but fund seekers in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, are still having the Christmas celebration in the air, but they're lamenting the hike in the prices of foodstuffs during the Christmas celebration. The resident who attributes the hike to fuel subsidy removal by the federal government appealing for an improved transportation system in the country. Our correspondent, Kumbi Aboluade, reports.
The Christmas celebration offers residents of the Federal Capital Territory an opportunity to reunite with their loved ones. Fun seekers trooped out in their numbers, causing heavy traffic on the roads. Amidst the games, eating and dancing in the Millennium Park, Maitama, the reason for the celebration is not lost.
We are here to celebrate Christmas, the birth of Jesus Christ, and it has been very amazing and we're having fun, lots of fun. They say what God cannot do does not exist. So we'll keep holding God as our driving force, and He's the only one that can see us through.
Residents also take a moment to reflect on the nation's development while setting an agenda for the federal government.
So I want the federal government to really look into the issue of transportation and the road. In fact, the big necessity of being in Nigeria, that the security, the water, the housing, the lighting.
The same situation is seen in Central Park. This time around, children are not left out. They engage in different activities such as face painting, dance competition, amongst others. They are excited to take a break from school to have some fun.
Do you have fun? Yes. Are you happy? Yes.
The kind of fun and people are happy. Just the guy is amazing.
Well, at another fun fair center in Abuja, residents lament the hike in the price of foodstuff and attribute it to the fuel subsidy removal.
Everything has literally gone up. I'll be glad if they can look into the price of the fuel, because fuel is the reason why all these things is up. So I'll be glad if they will look into it and cut down the price.
Today marks the last day of the Christmas public holidays, but of course, the message of love, unity, hope, and peace should not be misplaced. It should be carried along into the new year in order to create a Nigeria we all desire. From the nation's capital, Kumbi Aboluade, Channels Television News.
Well, Christmas is still in the air, and just before that goes away, then we have the New Year holiday also. But the realities, the macroeconomic realities, are still staring everyone's stock in the face. Let's see another side of that now. We have joining us for the commodity segment, the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rwani, to explore some of those issues. Good morning, Mr. Rwani. Well, compliments of the season. I would have loved to ask you how you spent your Christmas, but I mean, I guess that's not to be discussed here, but I'm sure you took some time to rest.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, so yesterday we had this great news, sounds great, well, until we see it happen, that Nigeria will be supplying LNG to South Africa. Help us understand it. I think it's a private company, and, you know, the bigger picture of this.
LNG constitutes about almost 14% of Nigeria's export earnings. So you have LNG coming out of the Nigerian LNG plant, and then LNG exported directly from Nigerian LNG. Now you have another company buying LNG from Nigeria and shipping it to South Africa. It doesn't improve the overall export earnings of Nigeria because it's a limit, but it also diversifies the market and also brings the private sector into the process. So it's, to some extent, it is improved news. No, I would say improved performance of the economy, in the sense that the private sector is cooperating with the public sector to actually enhance export earnings for Nigeria at a time when the Naira is under pressure.
But isn't this going to put pressure on domestic supply? I know there was a time, I think they had to channel almost all, I think, of all the NLLG products for domestic consumption. So isn't this competition for domestic consumption?
No, not really. We have enough gas for Nigeria's domestic needs. So we actually export. What is being exported is liquefied natural gas. What is being used domestically is called liquefied petroleum gas, which is for cooking. Then we are using compressed natural gas to fuel our cars as well. So I don't think there's a problem. It's not either or. It's just one complementing the other.
Can we expect this to add to the FX supply in the country?
Well, not really, because the LNG was going to be sold to somebody else now, but it's being sold through a Nigerian company to go to South Africa. So what it does actually is to diversify your markets. Before now, most of the LNG was going directly to Europe. Now you're having it, part of it going to the African continent, which allows you to insulate yourself from the vagaries and volatility of the international markets in Europe, especially now because of the Ukraine war. We've seen a lot of turbulence in that market, and the winter is coming. So naturally, I think it's excellent news for Nigerian diversification of its markets, but not necessarily in terms of increasing the export earnings.
All right. And then we see CBN has had to be clarifying some things. The banks are in good shape. Your money is safe. I just wonder what's at the root of it, because they say there's no smoke without fire. And sometimes when you hear some of these things, something must have started it off.
So in stock markets, we said you buy on the rumor, sell on the news. The problem with social media is that there's a lot of smoke without fire, right? So and a lot of what we call smoke and mirrors. The reality is that the Central Bank of Nigeria is there to assure investors that your money is safe. And if you look at what happened in Silicon Valley Bank in the United States and what happened to Credit Suisse and UBS in Switzerland, regulators and policymakers are, being very proactive. Rather than have rumors create a run of its own, what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy, they've actually come in at the right time to actually stall and prevent this thing from catching fire. So what have they said? They said the banking system is safe and sound, that they have enough resources to actually ensure that depositors' funds are not threatened. And more than anything else, there's proactivity or proactive thinking. And the central bank, I think the central bank governor said at the Institute of Bankers dinner that there will be recapitalization of the banks, just in case any of the banks are threatened. The recapitalization exercise will make them get absorbed into a consolidated exercise. So I think that by and large, what the central bank said is what it's expected to say. What we are looking out for is to see how they can be much more proactive in terms of its regulatory stance and stress testing banks just in case there are macroeconomic risks that could actually undermine their capital adequacy. What I must point out now is something which is quite worth noting or noteworthy. The federal government and state governments shared an approximate amount of about 1.8 trillion naira yesterday. What I want viewers to understand is that before the reform policies that were announced in June, the federal and state governments shared an average last year of about 600 billion naira. The early part of this year, maybe about 700 billion naira. But since June this year, and the announcement of subsidy reduction and exchange rate convergence, the amount being shared by the government has increased by 200%. In other words, from 6 to 700 billion, it has gone all the way to 1.8 trillion naira. So the government is making money out of the reform. The individuals, there's been palliatives and some droplets here and there for the people. But also, so essentially, the government has benefited. The consumers are making some sacrifices because you're buying petrol at a higher price and you're buying foreign exchange at a higher price. Now, how to convert government funding into well-being and happiness of the people is a big challenge. So your minimum wage is 30,000. They give you, I think they've given 60,000 naira in addition, making it 90,000, right? But the government has much more naira in nominal terms to spend. And this has to be translated further than palliatives. You need investments, you need increase in productivity, and you need to debottleneck the economy. This is where the real challenge is.
Yeah, we hope that the government will look that way in 2024 because, we've seen both the IMF and the World Bank applaud the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's led administration for taking these steps. And just as you have noted now, we've seen FAC increase month on month, but we're looking for, where it spreads to humans, the citizens themselves, especially those who are down the ladder, the social ladder. So we do hope that it will be more of this will be focused on by the government in 2024.
Definitely. You see, the thing is that the amount of revenue going to the government has increased. And coincidentally, at the same time, the number of multidimensionally poor people in the country have increased. There have been a lot of promises to do this and do that. I think the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs has been talking about interventions. But the impact of these things are not being felt because there's a time lag between when you announce policies and when you feel the impact and when people begin to believe you. So the thing is that you have to fast track the impact, because if you go down in the slides that you have before you, you'll find that the prices of commodities, in particular rice, has gone up by 49% compared to last year. Turkeys have gone up by 22%. Turkeys are for the elite. And then tomatoes are up 9.1% year on year. So people are feeling the pinch of inflation, and the government is also making more money. So how do you convert increased government revenue into increased output and productivity and into the welfare and happiness of people? This is the challenge. Talk is cheap. You can make all the announcements you like. You can take all the photographs you want all over the world. But the reality is that it must translate into prosperity of some sort for the people to begin to feel the impact, or at least reduce the pain and the pain, because the misery index actually has increased. The number of Nigerians who are in misery have actually increased somewhat.
So, Mr. Roy, thank God you're an economist. We've seen the government attempt to share this increase in revenue. At least I think that's what they try to do. When we hear cash transfer, we know they just started the 20,000 naira. We hear palliatives. We see Ms. Betta Edu, giving out things and all of that. But as we all know, we all see, the impact is either slim or non-existent. What do you think would be a more efficient way for the government to share this, especially the gains from subsidy removal, where we have seen their earnings up about 200%?
Well, you see, the reality is that these are nominal figures. It's just the naira that you are getting now is last year, with 700 naira, you could buy $1. And today, it's costing you 1,251 naira to buy $1. So in real terms, money is what money can buy. So what you need to do is to increase output and productivity. To increase output and productivity, you need domestic and international investment to increase. Domestic and international investment will only increase if people believe you, there's confidence. So to be honest with you, the government is saying all the right things. And they're saying the right things, they're taking the right pictures, they're making the right pronouncement. But what is being done and the impact of what is being done is not being felt yet. So there's a time lag. So you have to come across to people to say, look, there's a time lag. There's equal and sharing of the burden, but the sharing of the burden has to be visible. You cannot, on one hand, buy vehicles for 160 billion and you're taking 1,200 people to cop things. All those extravagant gestures are not consistent with the message of sacrifice and increase taxes and increase that. So one, you must get investors to be confident. Two, you must begin to act, like everybody is sharing the burden equally. And thirdly, you have to be credible. There's a trust deficit. So you can't blame it on the past. You have to take responsibility for what's happening and let the people know that the future looks better, even though slowly. So the question is that, will 2024 be better than 2023? You bet it will be. But people are getting impatient because people cannot take suffering for too long. That is the message that has to go out.
All right, Mr. Ronnie, just before we let you go, we're out of time, but I really need to know this. The CBN has been talking about target inflation as its focus. What does that mean? How does that change things?
Okay, no, the inflation targeting, explicit inflation targeting is a framework. It's like, here is the plan to build a house. The house itself is being built, and then you compare it with the plan. The inflation targeting, explicit inflation targeting framework has been announced, but without the target. So you have to have the target, and you have to have the anchor to anchor what they call the nominal anchor, which is actually the MPR, which is the interest rate. And that anchor has to pull other rates across. So without trying to bore the people, and because these are very abstract concepts when you talk about inflation targeting, the reality is that the test of inflation is, what is the price of rice? What is the price of onions? What is the price of tomatoes? What's the price of vegetable oil? If these prices are not moderating or begin to decline, even though seasonally driven, then people are not interested and will not be interested in all of these abstract concepts. Abstract concepts do not put food on the table, do not put rice in the pot, do not give you bread. Basically, you must drive down prices by increasing output. And you have to do that by, one, saying the right thing, but also doing the right things. That is the challenge that we face today.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail right there as usual, Mr. Rwani. Thank you so much for your time. Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rwani.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome back. Well, not far away from what we were discussing, some of the realities of 2023 as the year draws to a close. Now we put our eyes on the manufacturing sector, and we know that one major setback for that sector this year, 2023, has been the FX shortage, and of course the drop in the value of the Naira, which Mr. Rwani also referred to. So to give us a first-hand experience, we have with us the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Coleman Wires and Cables, Mr. George Odofuokan. Good morning and compliments.
Good morning. Compliments to you too.
Yes, I know. In between this year, I came to your factory, had a report, and we talked about the issue of FX. And the interesting thing about is you also did say there were some positives this year. So maybe we should start from the positives, because I think you talked about the fact that there's been kind of infrastructural development that has encouraged new businesses, even along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. So let's not all be gloomy and let's...
There were some positives, and let's not allude ourselves to it. The roads, the infrastructure, if you look at the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway today, the number of businesses, I chair Ogun State Manufacturers Association, and if you look at the numbers that we have seen increasing even in subscription on the Ogun axis, it's been massive. Now, the optimism was there, and unfortunately, the optimism is diminishing a bit. I'm a bit of an optimist, and as you say, we've met quite a few times and talked. I believe that the opportunities in Nigeria are immense, but sometimes we have to also balance opportunities with the ability to create businesses and reduce risk associated with businesses. For manufacturing sector this year, I think we had an high optimism of what was expected from moving from one government to the other. It's been dampened, unfortunately. It's the reality of today that we have to talk about, that we've been able to move from optimism of what we expect to happen. We all knew that, okay, you're going to take out subsidies, you're going to we expected the unification or convergence of the FX-related positions, but not at where we are. The reality is everybody's argument was Naira would stay between the 750 to the 850 mark. Today, where are we? We went to an all-high of 1,310. We had an impact of some of the in this case, some of the funds that were actually backlogged that was paid down, and that saw us moving back to 1,000. Then we devalued again back to 1,250, and now we're at about 1,002. Now there is a likelihood we would move back or appreciate the Naira in a bit, but consequences, and the key consequences of what do we do when we try to create palliatives. I'm a big believer is palliatives should be towards productivity, not consumption. Because the consumption palliatives create other effects that are counterproductive. Take, for instance, the palliative started off with people giving food, rice, bags of rice, yam. What is the impact of that? If I take 100 billion naira and I pour it into buying food, that's government money, taxpayers' money going into food. But what does it do? It impacts inflation, because you are now taking money that really has not been worked for to buy food that you're going to give away. The impact element is that you get an higher inflationary rate on the real factor of food because you bought food. Because me and you are working for every penny. Now, but the 100 billion that bought food has just increased the price of food. Whatever is left is what me and you are buying. So impacts raw materials. Now, fiscal policy and our fiscal policy and monetary policy needs to still be balanced. We need a better balance. They're trying their best, but I think we need a balance. Now, one misguided one, which I think is well misguided, is taking the exchange rate of customs, because I'm a manufacturer. And I think everybody that is looking at local production is importing some aspect of it. Whether you import machinery, you import raw materials, you're importing. Now, if I now go from taking the exchange rate to the dollar of calculating duty from 751, move it to 783. Nigerians are very resilient. We all kept quiet. But you now take it from 783 and jump it up 21% to 951. For someone like me, I had an instant impact of a raw material that came in a week after that decision that moved the cost of duty by 165 million naira just by doing that. Now, if you do that, what do? I increase my price. What happens to us? Inflation again. We want to manage inflation, but we're not actually balancing. So the palliatives should be at productivity.
Yeah, you know, when I saw the customs rates, in my mind, there was like, I thought the president said there'll be a convergence of the rates. So how come we still have customs rates? We have FX, we have, what's the other one? You know, if we're still dealing with the parallel markets,
correct?
You know, which the government does not recognize, but is the most available, you know, so we can say, okay, it's a spillover from, you know, because demand cannot be met. But how come even in the official window with the government, we still have multiple rates? How do we solve this problem?
I think,
isn't it possible to make one rate?
It is possible, but I think the first thing they need to do is there's a backlog. You have $7 billion backlog, of which I think by now they've cleared out about 1.5 to about less than 2 billion. Now, you still have an average of almost $5 billion, of which people like us have paid the government for, bought forward, never got the money. Some of us are still waiting more than a year for the money, and we've paid them. Now, invariably, what has happened is that I am a manufacturer or any other manufacturer that bought into that $5 billion and was supposed to pay raw material or his supply or his machinery. You never gave them the money. Now, do we continue to default? No. So what everybody has done is found another $5 billion and paid it. Now, what happens is that if you pay back that $5 billion or $6 billion, invariably the Naira will find its real level. Because what you've just done is giving back people money they've really paid for twice. But now, if they actually pay it, you give them credit. I would not need $5 billion again for me. The money I paid you in advance, indirectly, I don't need them to buy the dollar now. We'll find now the real value of money. The real value of the Naira, we all are still in agreement that it should be around 800, 850.
So we have 750 in the budget.
Now, we have 750 in the budget.
The reality, budget the other day, how real that is.
You know, the reality of the budget is then done to manage liquidity. If I give you 850 to the dollar to the budget, I'll give you more money. If I give you more money, I'll impact inflation. If I impact inflation, cost of funds become higher. We're back to the same problem. So what they do sometimes with the budget is to try and minimize the impact of liquidity. So that's the reality. So setting the budget at 750 is to manage the liquidity of what I give you. Because if I say 850 and Nigeria ends $1 billion,
I have to give you more.
I'll have to give you more. Then you go into more spending spree. And we need to be a bit more prudent. The reality is things are tough. The manufacturers are impacted. We're getting closures that we cannot actually afford. Now, how do we sustain these manufacturers? We need the government to actually play the right part. We need certain ministers, the Minister of Industry, to do far more job than she's doing now. Let's be realistic. We have to tell people who are doing their job, who are doing it right or what not. If you have a Minister of Industry that is not fighting government for the industry, we have a problem. It's not a trade and investment role. It's industry first before trade and investment. She needs to know that everything she does that creates jobs is 60 to 70% industry. So if I'm not today writing for IDEC, which is the import duty exemption, and the minister involved in industry has not signed one since she got on seat, we have a problem.
Have you been having meetings with her?
I think she's finally realized what she needs to do. I think we were called in, President was called in for about a meeting about a week or two ago. Finally, I think we need to get the government to actually see that industry stabilizes their country. The country stabilizes employment, stabilizes growth. Because if we don't process even agriculture, you still go back to industry. If you go into agriculture and we produce everything, we don't process it, we're back to the same thing, where they get so bad in what we scrap is more than what we actually sell.
And once we just keep depending on imports, we keep fighting for FX.
We need to backward integrate a lot of things. But you see, the critical part for Nigeria is we need to do what we're supposed to do tomorrow, today. We spend too much time in bureaucracy. Let's be realistic. To invest in Nigeria is tough. I'll give you an example. Recently, and we talk too much about FDIs, which is foreign direct investment. We talk less about domestic direct investment, which is localized drive. Recently, I actually organized a CEO's meeting in Ogun State with the state government. And they were shocked at a sitting. Less than 20 people offered $600 million worth of investment on the table now, not tomorrow, based on expanding their current businesses. We focus less on our own investments within the country, on those that have even put the money in, and we don't think of how do we drive them to actually increase their capacity, rather than how do we create foreign direct investment that, like portfolio investors, who only come for money management, money market, get out immediately, there's a trouble. Now, the question again is that how do we encourage investment? If you're a pioneer investor in Nigeria, in manufacturing, in any product that is not made in Nigeria, you're almost dead in the first 2 years. Why? Because unfortunately, and I'm a participant, we've done almost about 5 different products over the last 10 years that are pioneer products. And I'll give you what really happens. Recently, we did fiber optics. A year ago, we opened it. A year plus after, I'm still in the bureaucracy of moving the product away from raw materials, as in finished product. So $30 million investment, I sat there for 1 year while we're playing bureaucracy of how do we encourage more investment. So pioneer products in Nigeria means if you're not a foreign investor, that the government has pre-done everything for you. If you're a local investor, that you've just expanded your business into something that will replace importation, what happens is that they go into a tailspin of bureaucracy of having to check first whether you are true or not, even though they came for the opening. Then we start the whole scenario of bureaucracy.
So what do you say we tell President Bola Tinubu, we appreciate your efforts going out there to try to woo investors, but can you please look inwards? Because we're actually talking about changing our taste buds in Nigeria from imported goods to the local ones.
The reality is that they need to drive. I think there must be a focus. Maybe they need to take out industry out of all the ministry and stand it on its own. We've done that before, because I think there's a lack of focus.
But did it make a difference?
It did, in a way, because the job of that minister has nothing else to do than grow industry. So you want to create employment, but you don't want to stick to what creates the employment. So the industry sector, whether you want to localize local content, is like saying to Nigerians, and this is a very terrible thing to put down in place, you cannot tell me to pay you taxes with my money and don't want to spend it in Nigeria. We cannot be in any part of governance between the federal, the state, the local government, the House of Rep, and buy foreign cars when they're made in Nigerian cars with the taxes paid in Nigeria. Naira is Naira. If it's made in Nigeria, the Naira should be good enough. It shouldn't be buying dollars to import. We need to change our mentality. Manufacturing should be priority to local content, and local content will drive growth. And if we focus and believe in our own, the same way we used to have presidents driving 504s, let them drive made in Nigerian cars.
Wow, I think that's a beautiful place to end it. And the message, I just think I have goose pimples on my butt. I love Nigeria. I wish things would work, honestly, because we have all it takes. We just need to be intentional and less selfish and greedy.
I agree.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Nufoko, for sharing those experiences with us, and do enjoy the rest of the holiday.
You too. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's take a quick time out. We'll be back with the markets. Welcome back. Still watching Business Morning right here on Channels Television. We head to the markets now with Anita, and it seems that investors are spending more and not investing at this time. Anita, I don't know, you tell me.
Well, I'll tell you that it's more of a December slight profit taking, because don't forget we had 4 positive trading sessions last week, Monday to Thursday. Then we had a bit of a pullback of about 0.34%. So it's what you call the end of year, the December sell pressure, which people, of course, they would like to take advantage of some of those gains and make good use of their money, put your money where your mouth is, and then, of course...
Yeah, after all those gifts, does cost some money.
Yeah, and of course, don't forget that the value of the Naira has not been too encouraging. It's always been on the decline.
Yeah.
So that's how it turns out. So that's why we saw a bit of a pullback from what you see. Take a look at your board there, 0.34%, which is down from the previous loss that we had as at Friday. It was a 0.36% decline. So in Naira value, it's over 139 billion Naira knocked off from the total value of the exchange. And of course, take a look at your board here. First of all, we were in the 74,000 region, but due to this impact, the back-to-back of Friday, the last trading day last week, and then the first trading day for the final 3 trading days of 2023. So we saw a 0.34% pullback, and no thanks to the likes of Dangote, the cement, as well as some other key the stocks on the market. Now over to the banking count, to the sectoral performance counter, was a mixed picture there. But so far, out of the 5 key counters that we track, the banking counter, as well as the insurance and the oil and gas counter, were in the greens, while the consumer goods as well as the industrial goods counter, we talked about Dangote Cement, had that rub on, the red color rub on effect there. Now to tell us more about the market, let's talk to Peter Abe, equity trader at Stanbic IBTC Stockbrokers, to give us more details about Wednesday's trading session, the first day that the market resumed from the Christmas break. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Peter.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Okay. Now, I have 2 questions for you. First, is the first for the final week of December of 2023, where we're seeing the market taking off from the last profit taking that you saw on Friday, and then resuming with profit taking on Wednesday. So now, can you tell us more about this in just 60 seconds?
Okay, so we saw a bit of profit taking, like you mentioned, and of course we can't deny the fact that it's holiday season. Few investors in the market, and a lot of guys also out at the moment. So I think what we are seeing now may continue into the end of the year, but don't let us forget that activities or few other guys will just keep taking position ahead of 2024, and also the numbers that will be released as the year resumes.
Okay, so now you talked about taking positions. First, we're looking at the fourth quarter as well as the year-end financial markets results. But I'm very keen about the sectoral performance. We've seen banking counter do very, very impressive, as well as the consumer goods sector. So what was the sector that performed very well in 2023 and the sectors to look out for in 2024?
Okay, so like you mentioned, banking sector gained over 112% year to date, and we also have oil and gas as well, gained over 125% year to date. I think overall, most of all the sectors we are tracking, I think the same with you, banking, insurance, consumer, industrial, all of them gained so far this year. So it won't be out of place to tell investors that these sectors are still we believe so much in them. We have a lot of potentials in most of these sectors. Banking is one of them. Consumers, they had some sell-off due to their numbers, but I think things will start changing overall after the FX losses, and also the same for industrial. So banking, consumer, industrial, these are names, telco, these are names that investors should be looking at going into 2024.
Very, very interesting, Dr. Peter. But we thank you for that analysis on the markets. And of course, our eyes are on the market to see whether it will close in the green for Thursday's trading session. Thank you. So that was Dr. Peter Abe, equity trader at Stanbic IBTC Stockbrokers, giving us details about midweek trading session and the first for the post-Christmas results.
Yeah, well, you know, for me, banking has always been my favorite, the most liquid. I mean, the easiest to make
Where the
some
money is, exactly.
You know,
You got that
exactly.
right.
And I heard him say that it's also one sector or counter to look out for in the coming year. Thank you so much, Anita. All right, so now let's head to London, where Juliana is standing by. Juliana, good morning. So we hear that there was a strike, a junior doctor strike last week, but the impact is not over yet, and NHS clients are still feeling it at this time.
Good morning, Innie. You're absolutely right. It's been over a year that we've been talking about the significant industrial action across the United Kingdom, which has taken over swathes of sectors from education to airports and, most importantly, most critically, within the NHS. And we did have a junior doctor strike last week, 3 days of strike ending just 2 days before Christmas. And they're actually due to strike for a further 6 days, starting from 7 a.m. next week, Wednesday. Now, of course, unfortunately, if you were one of those patients who were due to have an appointment with one of those doctors who were taking industrial action, of course, you wouldn't have been able to see them, and you would have been rescheduled. And that is part of the data that we're going to be looking at now. The NHS have revealed that from last week, 86,000 appointments were cancelled with the NHS due to the junior doctor strike. And in fact, since industrial action has taken place over the past 12 to 15 months, over 1 million appointments have been cancelled. And that is critical for the NHS because we know that it's been embattled for several years. Lots of complaints from the other side of the House, with Labour MPs saying it's the Conservative Party and this government that have completely abandoned all of the pledges and promises that they made to constituents in the run-up to the election. And we know that, of course, with the COVID-19 inquiry ongoing, there are a significant number of people in this country that are suffering symptoms of long COVID. This is affecting the labour market. Because the NHS is already squeezed, it does take several months to get an appointment. And unfortunately, due to the industrial action, you could be waiting 6 to 8 months for an appointment. You get it only to be told that it's been rescheduled. So serious headache for the Prime Minister this morning. And that's because, as well, the union that represents these junior doctors are not given into negotiations. I believe a couple of months ago they were offered an 8 to 6% pay rise. They're asking for 35%, which unfortunately now, because inflation is so low, they're never going to get it. And I do think that slowly the public in the UK are starting to lose their patience with some doctors. Of course, you don't want them to have to go to food banks if you studied for several years and you're saving lives. But I think given the overall look of the economy, a 35% pay offer is just very unlikely to come from the government. So more misery beginning next week, Wednesday at 7 a.m.
Unfortunately, and we don't know when or how it's going to end, because even when that round ends, then there's another round still coming. Another thing that's giving, you guys some challenges, the weather is disrupting travels in parts of transport network.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Met Office have named this latest gust of extreme weather, Storm Gerrit, which is really wreaking havoc. So everyone's having to keep a hold of their wigs. But that's not the only issue, Innie. In the northeast of this country and in Scotland, I think a state of emergency has been declared in terms of weather. I think there's a yellow weather warning. I believe about 90,000 households lost power last last night. Some have been restored, thankfully, but I think there are still 14,000 people across the UK, particularly in Greater Manchester, which is a large city north of London. They are without power, which is incredibly distressing, considering it is very, very cold, wet and windy in the UK at the moment. I do know that the government have put in plans to try and restore some power to households, but it's not just power. There is also significant damage. It's a shame we don't have any pictures, but if you just have a look on X, formerly known as Twitter, you can see that, you know, large trees have fallen into houses and cars. So not great. Of course, you can't have a conversation in 24 hours and not talk about the British weather because it is so awful. It is a very small island, so it does get very, 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 very windy here. But the government say they are on it, so hopefully power will be restored, and insurance companies will be very, very busy trying to, relieve some of the pains that people are facing before Christmas.
Necessary to relieve. I mean, it's still the holiday. A lot of people are still at home, so they really do need the warmth and the light. But thank you so much.
Not us, Cine.
All right, Juliana. I'll see you at 1:30.
See you then.
Now let's head to the crypto market, and I see that the color on the board is the Christmas color,
right? But
it's a more friendly, warmer Christmas color. Congratulations, laddie.
Thank you. Final trading week of 2023. We're seeing Bitcoin and most of these altcoins are going to sprints to end the year strong. I'm sure investors be wondering which one is going to give the biggest gain in the end of 2023.
And which one is going to be a good platform to start with for 2024? You know what happened with Solana? I mean, go over 200% or so.
Yeah.
So January will be a good time to start that journey.
Exactly. But who knows what's going to happen in 2024? Will it be
with the halving?
Will it be profit taking?
With the halving?
We'll see with the halving. Maybe, just maybe. But we'll see the color there. It's all green, deep green, Ethereum, BNB, all of them, all looking really good. Let's look at the sentiment in the market now. It's still a very greedy market at this time, showing that investors are still very, very bullish in this market. 73 points for the Fear Greed Index. Let's look at the top cryptocurrencies we track now. We see Bitcoin there up 1.23%. Ethereum, $2,386. A big jump there, 6.70%. We see BNB, that's the native coin for the Binance cryptocurrency exchange, $324 there, 9.66%. I guess it's investors positioning for that sleepless AI that's coming on the BNB, on the Binance platform. They always have that launch pad for most of these coins there. So I'm sure that's what's pushing the price there of BNB. Traders trying to position Cardano, 64 cents. 7.20%, and XRP also not looking so bad, 64 cents, 3.29%. So after 10 long years, the creditors of the now defunct crypto exchange MTGOX are receiving compensation. Several MTGOX creditors said they've confirmed receiving payments, for their blocked Bitcoin deposits in fiat. We see some facts about MTGOX. That was a Tokyo-based cryptocurrency exchange that operated between 2010 and 2014. The exchange was responsible for more than 70% of Bitcoin transactions at its peak. In 2014, MTGOX was hacked and thousands of Bitcoins were stolen. The company filed for bankruptcy, and that's shortly after that. And in late 2021, creditors at the Tokyo District Court reached an agreement on the MTGOX on hack there. So they were supposed to compensate some of those investors that got their funds stuck on the exchange. Well, let's bring in Gilbert, your partner now, financial market analyst. Great to have you, Gilbert. So it's all about MTGOX creditors getting payments at this time. Do you think all of them are going to get paid? Because this is not the first time they're announcing paying some of these creditors. What are you seeing?
Okay, you know, they have already begun payments already, and this is for their customers who choose the cash payment. So far, there is even a more challenge of overpayment. There have been records of some customers that have been paid more than once, even though they have sent a circular to those customers asking them as well that they should make refunds for such money that was paid double to them. And typically, I believe this is going to bring a couple of confidence into the marketplace to see that after all these years, and we've been talking about payments is going to come and all that, it has dragged for a long while, and finally payment has begun. The payment is going to draw till about October 2024. So payment has begun. It's not a matter of when. It is a matter of has it gotten to me yet. If there's a customer who is yet to receive his or her payment, but this is actually for customers who choose cash payments. And this is supposed to bring a couple of volatility to the marketplace, regardless of the fact that this will bring confidence as well into the market. There'll be a level of volatility for customers that may want to sell off their token. Even though this may cause volatility, I don't see this to bring a major impact that may damage the market structure, because most of these investors are selling, most of the customers are selling to institutions. So most institutions will have to hold this exchange. So yes, I understand confidence will be brought into the market. We may expect a level of volatility, but the volatility will not bring major damage into the market. Meanwhile, I also think this is a lesson. It's a lesson for people in the cryptocurrency space, because we've always used this word, not your keys, not your crypto. So I really believe the lesson that happened with Matt Goose in 2014 has taught a lot of persons lessons, that the idea of leaving your crypto in a centralized exchange or wallet is a risk that you should consider before doing that.
Yeah, quite risky. Now, I wonder if, I know FTX too, they have customers to settle. Do you think we're gonna see some of those customers get refunded soon? That's for FTX.
Okay, for FTX, I saw a circular, I think a couple of months ago, saying refunds have begun taking place. And the case of FTX is very different in the sense that there is a new management team managing FTX. Even though I understand that the market confidence and trust is gone, regulatory bodies as well are also involved in the case of FTX, unlike that of Matt Goose that happened when there was no regulatory presence or framework at all. That of FTX happened when regulators were already getting involved in the marketplace. And the case of FTX also has to do with where the founder said that they weren't totally bankrupt, but that he was advised to declare bankruptcy, which he did not know will lead to the outcome that we had. So I also believe that the payment for FTX as well will also be met, because it's already on the way.
Hopefully it doesn't take 10 years though. Thank you so much. Gilbert Jopata, financial market analyst. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so there you have it, Ini. Not your
10 years.
Not your keys, not your accounts. If you're gonna hold, if you're gonna play in the crypto market, you definitely need to self-custody. Hold those assets in your own wallet.
You have to be responsible.
You keep it on the exchanges, and the exchange goes down. Your money goes down. And you might wait 10 years.
You wait 10 years. Thank you so much, Lad.
Well, that's a long hold, though. Thank you.
All right, so that's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Morning today. I hope it's been 55 minutes that's worth your while. And we'll be back tomorrow. God's grace, Laddie Williams will be back at 1:30 to give you updates from the world of business. I'll see you tomorrow. You have a great day.